Today we're going to talk about circles, and specifically the equation of a circle. Just as a quick review, recall that the circumference of a circle is equal to 2 times pi times the radius, or the circumference equals pi times diameter. In addition, we have the area. Area is equal to pi times the radius squared. But that's not our focus for today. Today we want to look at the equation of a circle, and before we do that, we'll quickly review the definition of a circle. So it's the set of all points x, y in a plane that are equidistant from a point hk called the center. So I'm going to go ahead and make the center hk, h comma k. So we have hk, and that's the center. The distance r between the center and any point xy on the circle is the radius. So basically, I could pick any point I want on the circle, and that would have an xy coordinate. I'm going to go ahead and pick something around this area here. So I'll go ahead and label that as x comma y. Now, if you recall, we can make a reference right triangle, so I'll go ahead and do that. In other words, to get to that point xy from the center, I go so many units to the right and so many units up. And of course, this would make a right angle, and then we have what we call a reference right triangle. And of course, the radius is the hypotenuse of the triangle. In addition to that, we'll think of the distance from 0, 0. 0, 0 is actually over here. This is our origin right here. And the distance from the origin to this point right here, we'll label that as h. That's the distance h. And then if we go up, that's the distance k. So therefore, the distance from the center to this point right here can be thought of as x minus h. And the distance from here to this point here can be thought of as y minus k. That would be y minus k. Now, if we use the Pythagorean theorem, we can make an equation such that we have x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. That's just using the Pythagorean theorem. And if you think about it, that is the equation of the circle. So that's what we'll be using in the next couple of problems. Next, we have something called the general equation of a conic. General equation of a conic. And that is ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared plus dx plus ey plus f equals 0. Now, we may get an equation that looks like this: 2x plus 8y plus x squared plus y squared equals 8. And what we actually have here is the equation of a circle in general form. So what we have to do is put it in standard form. So what we're going to do is something called completing the square. But to start with, I'll put all the x's next to the x's. So I have an x squared plus 2x plus, and I'm actually going to leave a space here, and then I'll have plus y squared plus 8y plus, I'll leave a space here, and we'll leave the 8 where it was, so that was equals 8. We already had an 8 on the right side. So in completing the square, we actually take half of this term here and we square it. So that's going to be 2 over 1 squared. I'm sorry, 2 over 2 squared. And this one over here will be 8 over 2 squared. So what we end up with is we have x squared plus 2x plus 1, and then we have plus y squared plus 8y plus 16, because 8 divided by 2 is 4, 4 squared is 16. And we just added a 1 and a 16 that didn't exist, and that all equals 8. However, like I said, if we added a 1 to the left side, we have to add a 1 to the right side. And if we add a 16 to the left, we have to add a 16 to the right. Now, what we've created on the left side, these are called perfect square trinomials, both of them. They're both what we call perfect square trinomials. And they factor. So in the first case, we have x plus 1 squared. That's how that would factor. And then plus y plus 4 squared. Y plus 4 squared. And that's going to equal, on the right side, if we add it all up, it equals 25. So that's actually our equation of the circle and our center of the circle. Remember, this is your h and this is your k. So the center would actually have coordinates of -1, -4. And the radius is not 25. The radius is actually, because 25 is r squared, the radius is actually the square root of 25, which is 5. Another type of problem that you may run across might be this next situation. I'll go ahead and paste that in, and I'll make that a little bit bigger so we can see it a little bit better. So what we have here is a circle. We know the center and we know a point on the circle, but what we want to know is the equation of the circle. We don't actually know the radius at this time, so we want to try to figure out what the radius is going to be. There's a drawing of the radius, and we can actually use the distance formula to find the radius. So we'll go ahead and do that. So the distance, we're actually not going to use the distance formula. We're going to use a revision of it. So if we think of the center as hk, so we have -2 for h and -3 for k, and then we actually have an xy coordinate. So the 1 is the x and the 4 is the y. We'll go ahead and use our equation of the circle, which is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared is equal to r squared. So we're actually going to plug in everything that we know. So we actually know an x coordinate. So that's going to give me 1, and then minus -2, and I'm getting those coordinates from the circle here. There's my 1, there's my -2, and that's going to be squared, and then plus, and then I'm going to have y, which is 4, minus -3. -3 squared is equal to r squared. So go ahead and do the math, and I have 3 squared plus 7 squared is equal to r squared. So that gives me 9 plus 49 is equal to r squared. So r squared is equal to 58. Now I can plug that back in and write the equation of my circle. So the equation of my circle is going to be x minus -2 squared plus y minus -3 squared equals 58. However, I can clean that up a little bit, because here a negative negative equals a positive, negative negative equals a positive. So one last step, that would give me x plus 2 squared plus y plus 3 squared is equal to 58. So that would be the best version of that. And that concludes our lesson on circles.